Okay, so let's talk about this vector recycling. So suppose that you have a vector x, which we combine the numbers 1 to 10, and then you have another vector, which has a semicolon, this only has a comma. So this only has two elements, 0 and 10. Okay? And suppose I add these two vectors. Well, first of all, what is x? And what is y? Right? So suppose I add these two vectors. What's it going to do? Well, we don't know. But r does something maybe a little bit unusual. But here's what r does with when you add these two. So let's try it. X plus y. Okay, I don't know if you can guess what it's going to do. It doesn't, not so clear, but anyway, here's what it does. So what does it do? So what it does is it adds 0 to 1, so you get 1. Adds 10 to 2, so you get 12. Then it recycles y, because there's not enough y to add to all the x's, so it just recycles y. So in other words, it adds 0 to 3 to get 3, and then 10 to 4 to get 14, and then 0 to 5 to get 5, 10 to 6 to get 16, and so on. Okay, so this is called, it's important to know that r does this vector recycling. Now suppose I create another vector called z, which is 1, 2, 3. Now what's going to happen when I add it to x? So you can see that there's kind of like a problem, right? Because this, I could sort of do this. There's 2 divides 10 evenly, but there are 3 elements here. 3 does not divide 10 evenly. So what happens if I add x plus, what does r do when I add x plus z? Okay, so what does it do? It gives us this warning message, but what did it do before that? So it did 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus x, 2 plus 2 is 4, 3 plus 3 is 6, and then what? The next number is 5. Where did that come from? Well, it did 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 plus is 7, 3 plus 6 is 9, and so on. And it just does it, keeps going until it reaches the end of y. So it recycles the 1, 2, 3 until it reaches the end of y. It does give us a warning message. It says in x plus y, longer object length is not a multiple of the shorter object length. But we already said that. We said 3 was not 10 was not divisible by 3. So that's what they're saying here. It's not a multiple. The 10 is not a multiple of 3. But this is just a warning message. It still does it. Okay, so it just tells you that maybe you didn't mean to do that, but it does it anyway. Okay, so a warning message is different than an error message. So a warning message, it will do the operation, but just give you some kind of little warning, like maybe you didn't really mean to do this, or maybe you did. Okay, so we can use this vector recycling to make some calculations kind of convenient. For example, suppose I wanted the average of these numbers. How could I do that? So this is the formula, right, for calculating the average. What does it mean? So it means that you take all the values of x and you add them up. That's what this means, right? You add up all the values of x. I hope you know that. I don't want to go through it, but anyway, that's we don't even need this symbol in R. So, but that's what it means. So you add these up, and then you divide by n, meaning n is the number of elements in the x vector. Okay, so how can we do that here? So this is the math formula, but we want to do it in R. Okay, so how do we do it in R? So before we do it, let me tell you about one function called the length function, and it tells you how many elements are in your vector. So like here, if I do that, what's the answer going to be? So how many elements are there in this vector? So I think it's obvious that there are 10 elements in this vector. So this should give me the number 10. Okay, it means that there are 10 elements there. Now if I go back to like, I still have the weight vector. If I did that, so I don't remember how many elements were in that, but if I want to know, I can do that. So there were 6 elements in the weight vector. If you want to check it, you can do that, right? So there's 6 elements there. So the length tells you how many elements are in the vector. So how can we use that to give us this? Well, that's the n that we need, right? That's remember, we want to take all the elements in X, sum them up, and divide by the number of elements in X. So that's the number of elements in X is the length of X. So we can divide by the length of X here to get the result. But notice that the length of X is just a single number, right? So actually though, we can use this vector recycling to do what we want. No, I take that back. I'm sorry. We won't use vector recycling right here, but let's just continue with this to get this average. So what can we do? So we can do this, right? So this is the sum of X. This is the sum of X, which is going to be the sum of these vectors, of these numbers, wherever X was, and then the length of X. So this should give us what we want. Okay? Now there are other ways to do this, and we saw it already. We saw this in a previous video, that you could do it this way as well. But I just wanted to show you this example. Okay, so we did this example, and we also talked about vector recycling. Okay, let's stop here.